Well, welcome to the Talks with Pops podcast. I am your host, Walter, affectionately known as Pops.
And I am the co-host, also known Wanye, also known as Son.
Or Yay, right? Whichever one you want to go with.
Or Yay. Yeah, either or.
So, a little background. Why did we start this podcast? Well, my son and I have many conversations, and we felt as though, hey, actually it was my son's idea. He was like, hey, so why don't we turn this into a podcast and let everybody hear what we talk about?
Yeah.
So, a little background, right? So, Wanye is my son, the youngest of three.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, for lack of a better term, I had Wanye outside of my marriage, right? So, obviously, that brought a unique set of circumstances to our relationship, which we felt like we should bring to the world, right? Maybe it can help other people kind of in their journey, right?
Yep.
So we'll just kick it off. We'll just start off at the beginning. So what do you have for me, son?
Okay, let me see. Let me get my stat sheet.
Okay, take your time. No rush.
All right. So my first question will be. So I guess everyone want to know at this point. So how did you officially meet my mother?
How did I officially meet your mother? Okay. So let me lay some groundwork, right? So I had you when I was 27, almost 28.
Mm-hmm.
So as a 20,
which I'm 27 now.
Okay. So that's crazy. Okay.
I'm 27 now. So that was 27 years ago.
So as a young 27-year-old in California for the first time in the military, I met her at the club. Me and my friends.
Everybody like
me and my friends, her and her friends. We kind of ran into each other, and that's how we met.
Yeah. It'd be like
I wish it was a Romeo and Juliet story, but unfortunately, it was not. Right? We met at the club.
Right.
So yeah, that's how we met. We met there. I was not married at the time. I was dating my wife at the time. She was in Miami. I was in California. So when we actually met, I was not married.
But see, we also got to even go back further as to, I guess, how could I put this question? So even with your circumstances, with you being military, and in the circumstances of you stepping out of the relationship you was in, how and why and what made you fight so hard to keep this relationship between father son, to just keep it going after all the years of me being rebellious and my mother being how she was and making it hard. So
the thing that kept me in it, right, was the fact that I was you, right? I came from a home where my parents were married, but I don't remember my earliest memories. I never remember my mom and dad being together, right? So my dad was a phone call, a package in the mail, and I knew what that felt like. I knew what it felt like not to have my dad in my life and how important that was and how that affected me, right? So no matter what my circumstances were, I was 1,000% going to make sure that I was in your life in some way, right? Maybe not the way that we both wanted, but in some way I was going to make sure that you knew I was your dad. And have some kind of relationship with you, no matter what it took. So that's kind of what kept me in there.
Right. And my thing with that, to make my side comment on that, and like I said, it's a lot of men or fathers, I should say, with the mother making it difficult or just certain situations at hand. Like, of course, you being in the military and me being where I was. Like, how could I say this? Like, I can respect how hard you pushed and how hard you just never gave up, because I know it was probably plenty times where, like you said, you easily could have just wiped your hands and just walked away from the situation, So like I said, when it comes to that, like I said, it's a lot of fathers out there, I'm sure, that had that situation that did have to wipe their hands,
right.
You know what I'm saying? So I could definitely respect that to a whole lot, a whole lot of tier, because there's not a lot of men that would have did that for sure.
And I appreciate that.
They would,
It was
yeah,
finding some good in the bad, right? Obviously, the way the way you came to be here wasn't the ideal way, right? Obviously, as a man, I didn't hold up my end of the bargain with my family, but nevertheless, like that had nothing to do with you. Um, you were innocent in this, and you deserve to be taken care of as best I could, right? Obviously, I couldn't do it 100% the way I wanted to, but I was gonna find a way, regardless of your mom, regardless of not really understanding or wanting that bond maybe at first. I was gonna do everything I could or exhaust all possibilities in order to get it
yeah.
done. You know what I'm
Because
saying?
I definitely could see. I definitely could see. Not that I have kids or not, but I definitely could see or have somewhat a feeling of how difficult that could have been. Because me knowing my mom and you know what I'm saying, me knowing you, it's like yeah, y'all two different sides of the
And,
iceberg.
and
You
look,
know,
I,
so
I I don't blame your mom one bit for everything that she put me through in order to be in your life, right? Because at the end of the day, I was wrong, right? I was wrong in that situation. She was hurt. Hurt people, right? So I definitely, I mean, she could have made my life a little easier, right? But I get it.
yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I get it,
yeah,
and I 100% understand.
yeah.
And despite all that, like we found a way to make it work. But let me ask you a question. Now that we're talking about a little bit of everything, so tell me, because I know what it was like for me. Like I said, I came from a home where the dad wasn't around. How was it for you? How was it for you growing up with me not being around, and what were some of your thoughts?
For me, I think just some of the little things of just not having like somebody to push me. Like of course I got my mom, but her dealing with a handful of kids and her being by herself, it was just hard for her to find that time for every single one of her kids. But for me, of course, it was just the motivation. Like nobody had me to push me, and then of course my mom going through her lifestyle and dealing with her deal with. I just didn't trust males. It was hard for me to trust males or even take any criticism from males. You know what I'm saying? I feel like in a way I was sensitive because I never had. I don't know. I just never had a man at the time to tell me what I wasn't and what I was supposed to be sensitive
Right,
to. So it was like that, of course. And then I would say, as far as like again, just motivated as far as even staying in sports or, you know what I'm saying. Just it just be the little stuff.
right,
Just not having somebody there to really watch you or guide you or just none of that. So I feel like it. I just slacked in a lot of areas. I feel if I would have had, my father figure early, I definitely would have stayed motivated and stayed with a lot of things that I
right,
started. But again, I feel like I grew a trait young of starting something and just never
right,
finishing it. You know what I'm saying? But again, that could be the lack of motivation or just again me feeling like nobody watching me.
right.
So it just it was like a lonely box I was in for a little minute. For a little
And I
minute.
tell you all the
But
time, man. Like you don't understand how similar we were at the core, right? I had
right,
some of those same issues. I learned how to be a man or what I thought a man was just from my environment,
mm,
just from from my neighborhood, from
right,
for a long
yeah,
time
yeah,
I had to unlearn a lot of things that I thought a man was, right? And I carried that right into
yeah,
my
me
marriage,
too.
right into everything, right? So I 100% understand what that feeling is like.
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
when your mother finally, what's your earliest memory of your mom telling you about me, and what did she say?
My earliest memory, if I had to really think back, I would say maybe like five to like seven. I would give like my earliest memory. And the thing she said, like you say, it wasn't like you had a love story. So it was just kind of like, your father's in the military, he's just real busy. You have brothers and sisters, but there he's dealing with them over there, and you know what I'm saying, I got to deal with you. And of course, along the ways, she, the picture, she would send me, the pictures, or like let me hear like the voice message you sent, or like little stuff like that. Like she would definitely keep me updated as far as you being my
Right.
father and
Right.
whatnot. She didn't just let it be like, oh yeah, he's just gone. Because she could have easily played that card. He just gone.
Right.
So no, she definitely kept me. Of course, her bitterness. She said what she said.
Right.
Whatever, whatever. But again, she kept it respectful. I can't say she kept it respectful, and it wasn't like she painted like this bad picture about
Right.
you. Because again, it was really up to me through time to understand, military, family, flying everywhere. Like, of course, as a kid, I'm not
Right.
thinking all that. It's just, why is my father not here? And of course, my mom not going so far into detail with it. It
Right.
was like, I only knew so
All
much,
right.
So of course, if I would have knew more, I feel like I definitely, because I still remember the phone call you called, and it was almost like the very first time we had talked on the phone. And it was like I was happy, but at the same time, it was like, man, like, I don't really even know who I'm
Right.
talking to.
Right. Right. Right.
I had never seen you. I had never did none of that. So it was just like, yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting, but again, she had told me so much about you already. I just wanted to
Right.
be around you. I just want to see what it was like. So yeah, it was like I said, it was nothing too crazy. It wasn't like she just made you just seem like this devil of a
Right. Right.
person. Nah, she was just like, he got another life
And,
going
and
on.
and I'm gonna tell you that's a
That's just what
blessing,
it is.
right? As much as maybe we didn't get along because of the circumstances, one thing I would never take from her was she did what she had to do, right? Um,
Right.
it
Yes, sir.
wasn't about our relationship. It was about you,
Mhm.
and I'll always respect her for that. Once again, she could have made my life a
Yeah,
little easier. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
if I'm being honest with myself, I actually deserved everything she gave me, right? Because like I said, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I was the person that was wrong in that. I should have.
Yeah, and I definitely could see, like, as I got older, how much she, like, slowly started to realize, like, yeah, he needs a male
Right.
figure. Like, because eventually I ain't gonna say I stopped listening to her, but again, I started being rebellious
Mm-hmm.
to her. So it was like, yeah, like, he not no longer listening to me no more. So yeah, he needs a male figure. So I feel like that's even more why she started to lean more on your shoulder when it came to me, because it was like it wasn't too much more she could do
Yeah,
with me.
it was definitely a process, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That okay. Hold on, let me see. What else I got in my pot here? Hold on. Okay. So this gonna be a little
All
tough
right,
one here.
all
Tough
right,
one
I'm
here.
ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So knowing you stepped out of your relationship and you were having a son with a lady outside of your relationship, how did you plan to tell your girlfriend at the time, or okay, how did you want to tell them, and did it go as planned when you told them?
Okay, that's a great question, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the answer to that question is I didn't have a plan, right? If I'm being 100% honest, I did not have a plan. It was crisis mode, right?
Yeah.
I was actually married at the time, and my wife at the time was pregnant with your sister. You and your sister are a month apart, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
uh, how do you tell
yeah.
how do you tell your wife that you're about to have a kid outside of the marriage, right? So I definitely did not have a plan. So by not having a plan, of course, it didn't go according to plan, right?
Yeah.
It kind of blew up like a nuclear bomb, right?
Yeah.
It it was probably you picture your worst nightmare, and that's how it pretty much went, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
the one thing that I will say is no matter what the circumstances were, um, I knew I was gonna be a part of your life, and this isn't me being super dad, right? Because at this time I'm figuring it out, right? I got a stepdaughter, a daughter with my wife at the time, and she's pregnant, and then your mom's pregnant, right? So it was it was a nuclear bomb, right? So no, I had no
It was a
plan.
lot to juggle.
I had no
Yeah.
plan, and then I was just learning how to be a man myself. I wasn't married not even a year. It was real bad. It was a really bad situation, right? But look, through that bad situation, I got you, so I don't regret anything.
Oh yeah, of course not. Of course not. I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can only
So let me
imagine.
ask you something. So during the the time before we actually start, you actually kind of figured out who I was, and we actually started talking. Did you, when you sat by yourself and you looked around and you saw other kids or even your brothers and sisters from your mom with their families, like,
Mhm.
did you ever think that I didn't love you or I didn't want you? Did you ever feel that way?
Yeah, I would say early on, early on, of course, because I didn't understand. Early on, I definitely felt like, the question of just why. It was just always why, like why they with they fathers, or why they with they brothers and sisters, and what I'm saying, I never even met my brothers and sisters, what I'm saying, or my sisters. So it was always again that big question of why, you know. And again, it was times I questioned myself or just questioned you, like, man, what does he got going on to where he don't want to come see me, or am I not important? So it was like just little questions like that. Just me being young, not understanding too much. It was just a lot of questions I had, and I doubted a lot. Like I didn't know when I was ever see you, if I was ever gonna see you. It was just time. It was time, and I was young. So again, I just didn't know too much. I didn't know too much at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure it out too. The one thing that I did know was, so first of all, when I found out when you were born, I was I had moved duty stations. I was actually living in Georgia at the time. So once I found out, you were born, and then I found out you were my son. It it, it was a crazy time for me, right? Because I'm trying to hold my marriage together, with duct tape and 550 cord, right? For those of you that are in the military, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So it's barely hanging on, right? And then here I am. I'm excited. I'm happy because I have a son. Because at the time I had all daughters, so I'm happy because I finally got a son. But then I can't be happy because I'm trying to hold my marriage together, right? So it was just a crazy time in my life.
So look, I have another
What's
good
up?
question. So how was it? Because I know you couldn't talk about it with
Right.
everybody, right? But the people that you did talk to about it, what was some of the advice they gave you?
So my mom, your grandma was still alive at the time, and the only thing she told me was, "That's your son, and I don't care what you have to do, but you have to be there for your son." Right. So that's the only advice she gave me, and believe it or not, she gave my wife at the time. She gave her the same advice. She said, "Hey, if you're gonna stay with my son, you need to stay there, understanding that he's about to have a child, or he has a child from another woman, and he's gonna take care of that child." Right. So, I had a couple of friends at the time, or people I thought were friends that I kind of confided in, but nobody gave me any real great advice. Obviously, I mean, a lot of people aren't in that situation, so they can't really give me advice. So, if the one thing from that time I remember was just my mom, your grandma. She's passed away now, but that's the only advice she. It wasn't even really advice. It was, she told me what I was gonna do, right?
Yeah, literally, yeah.
But but
She
but at the
letting
end
you
of the
know,
day,
like, yeah.
it was gonna happen. Even growing up, not having a dad, I always knew in my heart that I wasn't gonna have kids. Well, my plan was to have all my kids from one person. Obviously, that didn't happen, right?
Mm.
But
Yeah.
the kids that I did have, I was gonna be in their life because, like I said, growing up in Miami, growing up in the neighborhood, like I had friends that had kids everywhere, right? And I knew, and because I knew where I came from, that was never gonna be me. I was gonna be in my kid's life one way or another. So to answer your question, I got no advice.
Yeah, yeah. but grandma telling you what you're
Exactly.
gonna
This
do.
this is this is
Like,
what you're going to do,
yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly what happened.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. I got one more question.
Okay.
So, how was it for you when you did finally get us all together? Like, what was that feeling like, and what was that expectation you was hoping for?
Man, that was probably most up until that time. That was probably the most nerve wracking thing that I had ever done. Uh, I never thought it was gonna be possible to have all my kids in one place at one time, and that feeling that it, first of all, I was nervous, right? I was super nervous because, you know, my, your sisters were young. All of you were young, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we was little.
So
Yeah, we was
so it
little.
wasn't. I didn't know how you were gonna react to them, how they was gonna react to you. And then I got the dynamic with my wife at the time. I'm like, okay, well, how is she gonna fit in the mix, And the one thing I remember from the first time y'all met, it was super awkward, right? Y'all kind of
Yeah,
felt each other out,
yeah,
right? You know,
yeah.
but man, I'm gonna tell you the next time you guys got together, look, I almost cried. Right? I'm not a super emotional person, man, but I almost cried because it was like y'all had never ever been apart,
Yeah,
you
literally,
know,
literally.
and
Yeah, I
it's like
remember.
that to this day. I mean, you're their brother. They don't look at you any different. Well, at least I don't think so, right? I'm not
Yeah,
with you all
yeah,
the
no.
time, but it
Mm,
was. I never thought it was gonna happen, but when it did happen, it was one of the best feelings I ever felt in my life, and I wouldn't change that
yeah,
for the world. Like I said, the circumstances of you getting here wasn't great, but I know I
mm,
never regretted a day. Like I love you, my son,
right.
and it is what it is, right? We gonna ride this thing
Yeah, yeah,
to the
yeah.
tires fall off, right?
Until ain't no more
Yeah,
wheels
yeah,
left, Yeah.
yeah.
But it was honestly, it was the same for me. Like it was. Of course, my biggest thing was meeting my
Right.
father. It was like, man, I'm finally gonna meet my father. And it was like it was the ride home, and then it was. I can remember like it was yesterday. We literally stopped at
Right.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
We went back to the house. We went back to your house. I sat at the table, and then, like you say, it was that awkward
Mm-hmm.
silence, And he was like, "Hey, Leah, Jasmine, this is your brother."
Right.
Hey, yeah, Wanya, this is your brother, sister. This is your sister. So it's like, hey, how you doing? How you
Yeah.
doing? But like you said, it was that awkward, like, But I'm not. It was when Leah came up to me. It was like, do you like
Yeah.
games? Like, do you
Yeah.
like toys? And it's like, ever since then, it just
Yeah.
took off.
Yeah.
It just took off. And then Jasmine was just always there to watch
Yeah.
over us. Like, yeah, y'all make sure everything
Yeah.
good.
I,
She was always the boss. She's
yeah.
always the
I
boss.
think
So
I
yeah,
think you and Leah, and she doesn't like to be called that, but whatever. We're gonna call it that for the podcast, right?
yeah,
So you and Leah,
yeah,
I believe you two were always like the same. Like you guys kicked
yeah.
it off right
Literally,
away. Uh,
yeah,
Jasmine being the older sister, it was little. She was a little territorial, right? Because it had always just been
yeah,
them,
yeah, yeah.
But
Mm.
but once she came around, it was an
Oh yeah,
amazing,
it
and
was.
y'all still have
Yeah,
that relationship today, right?
yeah.
You know
Literally, it's literally the
exactly.
same way.
Yeah,
It's literally the
yeah,
same way
yeah.
since we first met each other. Like it's literally the same exact way.
So I got a question. So
But it's
yeah,
all
it
love,
is, it is, and I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you, I I love to see it. Sometimes when y'all get
Mhm.
together, even now, y'all all adults, and
Yeah.
I just look at y'all and I just think back to that time, when all y'all met for the
Yeah,
first
me
time,
too.
and
Me too.
yeah, it just warms my heart.
It be like that sometimes for me, like especially like when I see all three of y'all together, it be like, man, like that's crazy. Like I'm really
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
Like I really made it. You know what I'm saying? From when we first started all the way to here. Like, yeah, it's a long way. It
it
was a
was,
long
it
way.
was,
For
but we
sure.
made it. And like I said, I think that's why, because we have conversations like this all the time. Just me and you.
Mhm.
So I think opening up these
Right.
conversations and getting into, because we got a bunch of things we could talk about, right? We
Yeah.
just kind of
Honestly,
just laying
yes.
the groundwork for this initial episode. But
Mhm.
I think as we get into, when we start actually hanging together and
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah,
conversations with
yeah.
you and your sisters, and you coming to stay with me later on in
Mhm.
life, and just a lot of the things that we went through early on
Yeah.
that were hard, right?
Yeah, it was a roller
It
coaster.
was,
It
yeah.
was a roller. It was an
It
emotional
was,
roller
it
coaster at
was,
that.
it was.
Like, yeah, it wasn't just like, oh, you just hard headed. It
Right,
wasn't like that. It was just trying to two men at that point trying to figure
exactly,
out and recapture something that they lost so
exactly,
long ago. You know what I'm saying?
exactly, and that's what it was,
So
right?
yeah,
We're men. I mean, you came to stay with me at 19,
yeah,
and you're already the person you are, right?
yeah,
Yeah, we spent
yeah,
time early on, but me moving around in the military, and I never, we never really spent an extended amount of time, because even when I got stationed in California,
right,
I wound up in Iraq back to back. So even the time I was there, I was
right, right,
gone, right? So we
right,
spent very little time, and we only really got to reconnect as adults. Like, you're an adult, 19,
right. Mm.
and it was a struggle, right? And we'll get into
It
that in
was,
future
it
episodes,
was,
man.
it
But
was.
but we made it. We figured it out, and I think through our
Yeah.
conversations about those times, I think it'll help. What do you think?
I feel like it'll help a lot of people. A lot of people. Yeah, again, even the people who feel like they too hard and they never had a soft spot. But I'm sure you get a conversation, and then, or even sit down and ask them like, would you ever want to talk to your
Mm,
pops? You know, if you ever had the chance to speak to him again, would you want? And I'm sure, of course, depending on who they're in front of, they're gonna answer the question correctly.
right.
But I just feel like through trial and error of what we've been through, I feel like it's definitely a story to tell for the people who are
Yeah,
interested, or have that time of day, or just need to hear, what it's like to even have a father,
I agree.
So I feel like it could go real far with the potential and the hearts that hear what they need to hear,
I agree. And like I said, this is just the initial kind of laying our story out there, very very basic. But one thing I will say, everything that we express here is our journey, right? It's not saying this
Right,
journey is going to work for anyone else that's listening.
right,
Everybody has their own journey. They got to approach it their own way. And one thing I will say
right.
for me, right, and this is just me,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that helped me even through this process was seeking counseling, right? I had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff, a lot of baggage from where I grew up at, how I grew up, and then in the
Mm-hmm.
military, going through what I went through. So it was therapy helped me a lot, helped me understand
Right,
how to put things in perspective, how to unpack a lot of things, and actually how to have a conversation with my son.
right. And with this here, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too much of a emotional person either. I don't like to express myself too much so for me this is therapeutic for me too, in a sense of just hearing my voice and again speaking to my pops, you know what I'm saying? Someone it's been a journey, you know what I'm saying, getting to where we at
Yeah,
today. So it's definitely gonna be a interesting
for
series to
sure.
watch, most definitely.
So
Most
I'm
definitely.
not I'm not here to tell you have to go to therapy. I'm just telling you what therapy is for me. I'm not recommending a therapist, right? Find your own. One size doesn't fit all, but definitely
Yeah,
talk to
yeah, it's
somebody.
fair.
Definitely talk to somebody
Right.
and get some advice, right? And not just anybody,
Yeah.
right? Because your friends,
Yeah, right,
I got so much bad advice from friends that I think I've
right.
had enough for a lifetime, right?
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I feel you on that
But the
one
one
for
thing I
sure.
want to say for this podcast ends, and I'm gonna end it the same way every time, is I love you, son. I don't care what the circumstances was of you getting here. I've always loved you.
Mhm.
I've always knew I was gonna be a part of your life, and that goes for today until neither one of us are here anymore, right? I love you, and
Yes,
that
sir.
just is what it is, right?
Well, pause again. I'm gonna tell you like I always do. Thank you for everything. You know what I'm saying? I know it wasn't an easy journey, but I love you and I appreciate everything, man. Real
And I
talk.
appreciate it. And look, it isn't always pretty, right? It isn't always pretty, and we'll get into
Nah,
that.
nah.
But end of the day,
Yeah.
man, you don't know how long you got on this earth, right? So love the
Right.
people you love, tell the people you love that you love them, and show up for them, right? That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And just be
All
there.
right, man.
Be there when they need you.
Episode 1 in the books. Hey, you guys stay
In the
tuned.
bag.
It's gonna be more episodes, more stories, more everything,
Oh yeah,
right?
plenty more to come. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna get. I feel like it's even gonna get a lot more emotional. You know what I'm saying? This is episode
I
one.
agree. I agree.
It's episode one.
Toss with Pops podcast, episode 1 in the books. Love you, son.
It love you too, pops.